Hi everyone, it's Alexis with Project Management Made Simple. In this video, I'm going to answer a popular question that comes across my inbox, which is, how do I become a Scrum Master without experience? So, a couple of things that I want to highlight before getting into the details of this presentation. Number one is that the scope of this content is becoming a Scrum Master for a software development team. There is a book that I read a couple of years ago. I will leave a link to it below where it makes the case that Scrum can be used for all different kinds of work. So, I wanted to call that out specifically because there may be certain things that are going to be different if your goal is to be a Scrum Master in a different field than being one to a software development team. Number two is that the role of a Scrum Master is oftentimes not entry level. So when this question comes across my inbox or when I see it in different forums, oftentimes there is this underlying surprise that this role is not an entry level role, or there's this misinterpretation that it is an entry level role. And that I think goes to a bigger situation that I think may be happening in the background where when this question is posed, it's someone coming to me or coming to the forum and saying, I got certified, why can't I get a job? Why can't I get a job as a Scrum Master? And they quickly learn that it's because they need experience. And so in this presentation, I'm going to help you with how to fulfill that gap. But ultimately, I do want to as well acknowledge that if you are in that boat where you have become certified and you're frustrated and you're like, wait a minute, I was kind of sold on this idea that it was going to be easy to become a Scrum Master. Know that that is not likely to be the case. And if you're watching this video, it might be because you are facing some of those frustrations. And so one of the things to call out is that the Scrum Master role is oftentimes not an entry level role. You do have to have experience to get into this role. Now, point number three is that everyone's situation is different, so this will serve as general advice. So if you are someone who has worked on a software development team before, if you are someone who's never worked with a software development team, if you don't have any experience in the working field and you're still a student, for instance, everyone has their own experiences. And so this presentation is going to be generic advice. If you do have specific questions, I do offer coaching services, of which I will leave a link to that below in case you are interested. So let's get into the details. Becoming a Scrum Master without experience. Point number one is to read the Scrum Guide at scrumguides.org. It is free. It's no more than 15 pages long. It comes in a number of different languages. And so that is going to give you the foundation of Scrum. There are a lot of different articles, materials, videos that build upon the Scrum Guide, but ultimately that is going to be your starting point. And honestly, in most cases, your ending point as well. And when I say your ending point, when I go through different forums to better understand the challenges that individuals and teams are facing within Scrum, what I notice is that sometimes those questions could be answered if you refer back to the Scrum Guide. So, although this video is not targeted to those of you who are experienced with Scrum or experts in Scrum, but for those who are experienced, we are reminded that the Scrum Guide is always going to be something to benefit us and to be beneficial for us to refer to regardless of how well we think that we know Scrum. So read the Scrum Guide. Point number two is, if you haven't already, become certified. The two most commonly known certifications are going to be the CSM or the PSM. But they both do have costs associated to them. I don't know off the top of my head the cost of each one, but I will leave links below in case you are interested in becoming certified. Then I'll leave links to the organizations that provide these certifications. But although I said at the start of this presentation, and this still stands to be true, although I said there are some individuals who will get certified and find themselves frustrated that they can't just find a job, the certification is still important. From my personal experience, I did not get certified until maybe a couple years into my Scrum Master journey. I have a unique experience in that I started off as a project manager for IT infrastructure projects, and then I moved over to software development projects. And at that point, I was hired in as a project manager, but I didn't know at the time what I was really doing was being a Scrum Master. And so along my journey, I became certified, and I realized how much more helpful it would have been at the start of my Scrum Master journey to become certified. But for a variety of reasons, namely that I didn't know the certification was out there. So if you're not certified, become certified. It's going to be super helpful for you in understanding the knowledge that you should know as a part of the Scrum Guide. And also when you do go to apply, this is becoming a requirement. It's no longer a nice to have. It's becoming something that is required of you to even have your resume looked at, is to be certified. Now, point number 3 is to conduct informational interviews or find a mentor. If you know a Scrum Master, if you know IT teams that use Scrum, then talk to them, talk to their Scrum Master, get a better understanding of what their journey has looked like. Because everyone's journey is unique. Like I said, for myself, being hired in my second role as a project manager, but then later on learning that I was really a Scrum Master, which I have my own thoughts and opinions on a project manager being different from a Scrum Master. I will have a link to that video below in case you are interested in knowing the differences between the two. But that's not everyone's experience. Some people come in as a Scrum Master from being a developer. They pivot into being a Scrum Master and they've never done any sort of project management. Not that you have to. Let me also clarify. You do not need to have project management experience to be a Scrum Master. I think it is helpful, but you do not need it. Okay? And so you can also look at finding a mentor. So in those same people that you would be doing informational interviews, seeing who you connect with enough to be a mentor and to maybe help you along in your journey as well. Point number 4, if you are currently working in corporate, in some type of corporate aspect, then you likely work with a product suite. For instance, if you work as a sales team member, you might work with a CRM, a customer relationship management tool. Perhaps it's Salesforce. If you're working with a Salesforce team, maybe you have, or if you're working with Salesforce, maybe there's an in-house Salesforce team. That's actually the scenario in which I'm currently in. I am the Scrum Master for Salesforce teams. And so in this case, and the use case here is that we have business users who use Salesforce, not just, we have sales users, legal, finance, anyone who you could think of that needs to be a part of a deal, of a sales deal, is using Salesforce. And so with that, in their day-to-day, let's say for instance, someone is on the sales team and they want to pivot into being a Scrum Master, what they could explore doing is doing some research to see, who is the team that maintains this Salesforce product? Oh, I see that there's an internal IT Salesforce team. Let me reach out to someone on that team, maybe to the product owner, and see if I can help in some way. Maybe I can help with eliciting requirements from our team. Maybe I can help at some point with drafting requirements as like a first draft for them, and then being able to position yourself in a way where you are establishing a very close relationship with this team. And as soon as you start establishing that, you can see about pivoting into becoming a business analyst. So if you're coming from the business side and you're wanting to come over to the IT side, becoming a business analyst first can be a great approach for you. And I've seen this many times. Why? Because you know the business. And that's what business analysts do. They analyze the business. So if you know the business process for which that product is set to be a part of or to automate, whatever the case may be, then you can align yourself to being a business analyst, which is a common role that will sit within the Scrum team. Now, let me also call this out. The business analyst role is not something that is addressed in the Scrum Guide. There are 3 roles: the product owner, developers, and the Scrum Master. Developers can mean a multitude of things. In my world, it means designers, front-end developers, back-end developers. We also have QA, so our testers, and then we have our business analysts. They are all underneath that umbrella of developers, okay? So I'm calling that out because you may say to yourself, well, business analysts aren't a part of Scrum. Technically, there's no call out in terms of the roles that can be a part of developers. And also, as I mentioned before, Scrum can be applied to a multitude of industries. So developers is a very generic kind of word. And I believe they call that out in the Scrum Guide as well. Getting back to the point here, if that's your situation where you are sitting on the business side and you want to switch to the IT side, look at the products, see the team that maintains it, build a relationship with that team. You can build a relationship by feeding them requirements, by being an advocate for that product, by understanding that product more, and then seeing if there's a way you can pivot yourself into becoming a business analyst on that team, and that being one way to get your foot in the door to joining a Scrum team, which will help you significantly in your journey to become a Scrum Master. So point number 5, I actually touched on this already. So I'm glad, because I kind of felt like that last point was a little bit long there, but is to pivot as a business analyst or potentially a tester as well. So something else you can do when you're on this journey, if you're in that similar situation where you're on the business side of things, is see if you can be a tester of the product. See if there's a way, while you're feeding in those requirements, if you have some capacity, hey, IT team, can I test some things out? Can I write some test scripts? And test scripts may seem like something intimidating if you've never worked with a software team before, but it's really not. It's just writing out, what do you do? How are you going to validate that this functionality is working as expected? That's all a test script is. So it's like 1 through whatever steps that you have to take to say this passes or fails. IT teams will love you for this. From my experience, this tends to be a really big pain point in sometimes working with businesses or working with clients, is the testing part. So if you are someone who will speak up and volunteer your time to do that, to be a part of it, it's going to be super helpful for the teams, and it's also going to help you to understand the product more. And as you're understanding the product more, again, aligning you closer to that team and being able to be more helpful and valuable to them. And lastly is potentially being a subject matter expert, which is basically knowing your domain very well. So that, very similar to being a business analyst, you can be the person feeding requirements to the product team, and again, establishing that rapport, that relationship, and hopefully being able to work with someone on that team to better understand what their issues are, what their challenges are, and aligning yourself to a Scrum team that, even if you don't become a part of that Scrum team, then you can potentially use that experience as a way to open up other experiences on other Scrum teams. This was a video answering the question, how to become a Scrum Master without experience. I hope you got something from it. If you did, please do give this video a thumbs up. And also, if you want to talk more specifically about your situation, feel free to book me for coaching at projectmanagementmadesimple.com/services. I will also have a link below, and I will speak with you all in my next video.